can everybody hear me now? Can everybody hear now? I am not muted. People are saying I'm muted. I'm not. The mute button is not on. Can anybody hear me now? Okay. All right. So we'll have to use the headphones. I should have been doing that to begin with. Okay. Let me start once again. This is something I did not want to have to talk about today. I didn't want to come to you to discuss this, but unfortunately, it's a topic that is another one of those things that it's reality and we have to discuss it. So I titled this this program tonight, "Don't Fight the Mandates." What do I mean by that? You're like, wait, what? Don't fight the mandates. Isn't that what you're doing? That's the whole point, is fighting the mandates. That's not entirely accurate. Okay, so when we say we're fighting mandates here at We the Patriots anyway, we're fighting against mandates without exemptions. Okay, mandates from employers or schools that don't, or businesses in general, that don't allow exemptions for religious belief or for medical reasons. That's what we're fighting against. Just to fight a blanket mandate and say they don't have the right to mandate it is a losing case. And I said that about 2 months ago to a lot of people. I took a lot of flack for it. People said that I didn't know what I was talking about. They shook their head at me and said, no, we absolutely have to fight to strike down the mandates just in general. The colleges don't have a right to make a mandate. I said, I think you're wrong, but go ahead, file your lawsuits. Well, we have a lawsuit that was filed by students at Indiana University. They did not consult me, by the way. I never spoke to them. But we have a lawsuit that was filed by students at Indiana University, was dismissed a couple of weeks ago. They appealed, filed for an emergency an injunction, pending their appeal to the Seventh Circuit. The Seventh Circuit denied that today and said that because one of the things you have to demonstrate when you're asking for an injunction is that there's a strong likelihood of success on the merits on appeal. And the three-judge panel of the circuit court did not agree that they would succeed, said that basically Indiana University, which is a state university, a public university, does have the power to enact mandates. There is nothing in the Constitution that prohibits it, according to them. That's what I said a couple of months ago. Again, people, thought that I was, just flat wrong. But I predicted that this would happen because the battle lines, in my opinion, need to be drawn on the lines of exemptions, religious and medical exemptions. Okay, you can mandate, you just can't mandate without exemptions. Okay, you just can't say to someone that we're mandating this, but we're not going to make any exemptions. We don't care what your religion is. We don't care if you have a disability. We're not making any exceptions or exemptions. That's what you can't do. You can make a mandate, though. There's actually nothing in the Constitution that says you have no right to mandate this medical procedure, especially if it's something like this, which is an education, a college education. There's no constitutional right to a college education. Now, if they were conditioning a constitutional right on you receiving a medical procedure, then we have a different story. If they're saying you don't have a free speech right, you can't get that permit to hold your protest in the park unless you get vaccinated, now we have a different case. That I could argue, because there's a constitutional right to freedom of speech, right? They say you can't attend church unless you get vaccinated. Now I've got a problem. There's a constitutional right to free exercise of religion. There's the Establishment Clause as well. Now we've got something there, okay? But there is no constitutional right to a public education. No U.S. constitutional right. There's state constitutional rights to, a secondary education, not usually a college education. But there is definitely no constitutional right to a college education. And so for that reason, the court said, Indiana University can do this. And then they talked about Jacobson. And Jacobson often gets misinterpreted. I don't think the court actually misinterpreted it in this case. The court said, listen, things are better. What Indiana University is doing is better than what was happening at Jacobson. And the Supreme Court said Massachusetts could mandate vaccinations without any exceptions for the whole state. Now, I think, again, that would change now because as the laws developed over the last century or over a century, I don't think that a state can mandate for all adults without exceptions, without exemptions. But in 1905, that's what was happening. All right. And they said that was okay. And so what the court in the Seventh Circuit said today, well, this is better. Indiana University is offering something a lot better to people than what Massachusetts was offering the adult residents of Cambridge. I should say the city of Cambridge was offering to all adult residents. They were saying, in that case, they said no exemptions. Indiana is giving exemptions for religious belief or for medical reasons. So they're not doing anything wrong. They're actually giving more rights than what the city of Cambridge was in Jacobson. So, I actually think the court got it right from a constitutional standpoint. Do I think that should be the law, that you're allowed to mandate these things? Do I think there should be something in the Constitution protecting more explicitly bodily autonomy? Yes. Now, you'll say, well, what about Roe v. Wade, Griswold v. Connecticut? What about all those, the Planned Parenthood case? What about all the cases about bodily autonomy, bodily privacy? Isn't there a bodily privacy right in the Constitution? Yes, there is, but they're going to say when there's a public health concern, when what you're doing is injuring and harming others, then it doesn't apply. And I know that's going to seem counterintuitive to those of us that are pro-life and say, well, of course you're harming others. You're killing others with abortion, right? But they don't see it that way. Again, that's not how the court has interpreted that. That's not how the court has viewed abortion. They don't see that as a public health threat. They see something like what's going on now with COVID as definitely a public health threat. People walking around, and just by breathing on someone, you could, cause someone to drop dead, which is the mainstream narrative, right? If you were to accept that mainstream narrative, which I know most of you watching don't, I don't. If you were to accept that, then you can understand why they feel that way. This is a major public health threat. So yes, your personal bodily autonomy doesn't entitle you to go around killing people by breathing on them. Of course, nobody's killing people by breathing on them, but again, that's how the mainstream narrative has developed, and that's what people believe. And so, unfortunately, that's how these cases have developed. So that are coming out. So that's why I said right from the beginning: do not fight the mandates as a general rule. Fight this fight on the battle lines of exemptions. If your religious or medical exemption is denied, that's when you get a lawyer. That's when you fight, and that's a fight that you can actually win. That you have a really good chance of winning, in my opinion. All right. Well, is that as good as just outlawing mandates all throughout the United States? No, but at least it gives those who have sincerely held religious beliefs or medical reasons an option to opt out if we're successful in those cases. Okay. One other thing I want to address: people say, but isn't it discrimination? What about the discrimination laws? Okay. What about the discrimination laws? The fact that, yes, okay, so even when they give you an exemption, they're segregating you, or they're making you have weekly testing, or maybe twice a week testing. I've heard in some places they're making you continue to wear a mask, but the vaccinated don't have to wear it. Isn't that discrimination? Well, yeah, it's discrimination, but guess what? Not all discrimination is illegal. Only discrimination that's prohibited by law specifically is illegal. So if it's a protected class like race and religion and national origin and sex and all of those protected classes that are specifically enumerated in the discrimination statutes, vaccination status is not listed. And I mentioned this in a live I did last night too. Attorney Harmeet Dillon tweeted out in response to something Kristi Noem had said, Governor Noem from South Dakota, that, it would be a bold move. Why don't we make vaccination status a protected class? It's not a protected class, though. I don't see that happening. Definitely not at the federal level. Maybe in a couple of deep red states. It's possible. I don't think it's happening anytime soon, though. Until vaccination status is a protected class, they can discriminate on that basis all day long. An interesting legal argument could be, but wait, if your vaccination status is tied to your religious belief, aren't you really discriminating based on religion? That's a hard argument, because what's going to happen is the colleges would say, for instance, well, that's not true. We didn't segregate people based on religion. There's plenty of, you're Catholic and you didn't get the vaccine, the shot based on that basis, based on your Catholic belief. We gave you a religious exemption, but yes, we're making you wear a mask and stay away from others. But there's other Catholics, okay, who did get the shot, and we're letting them walk around without a mask and everything. So it wasn't based on religion. It was based on their vaccination status. You guys both have the same religion. There's one Catholic here and one Catholic there. One got vaccinated, one didn't. So we're treating them differently based on the fact of what they did, their vaccination status, not based on their religion. And I think that's an argument they'll win in court, to be honest with you. Even though religion is deeply personal, even though religion doesn't mean what the official tagline, what the official, tenet of the organized religion is, it's based on your own personal beliefs. So each religion can be individual to each person. I don't think ultimately that's going to be a winning argument for a plaintiff in that case. I think ultimately, the defense, the university in that case would win, or the employer, whomever it is, would win. So that's why I, unfortunately, don't agree that this is the best way to challenge this. Becky is saying we have more rights than just what's in the Bill of Rights. Yes, we do. Just what I mentioned. We have state and federal discrimination law. Okay. But unfortunately, it doesn't mention vaccination status. And college education, again, is not a right anywhere in the Constitution. Okay, so you can't say they're taking away a fundamental right from me. There's no fundamental right to receive that education. People don't like this. I know some of you are upset hearing this, but I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm here to tell you the truth. Okay, and what I believe to be the truth, based on everything I've seen with the law, my reading of it. You don't have to agree with it. Again, I'm not giving people legal advice here. I always put that disclaimer. I'm just telling you, I'm just giving you my opinion, what I believe. Okay, you can say that I'm wrong. You can say you don't agree. You can say you want to find a lawyer and go file all these lawsuits against, just mandates in general and try to get all the mandates stricken down. Go ahead. That's your right. Go ahead. Try to find lawyers to do that. Take on those cases. I think it's an incredible waste of time and money. But go ahead and do it. I think the best way to fight this is along the lines of exemptions. That's what we've been doing. And again, we are here to help you. If you need help getting a religious or medical exemption, if you need to speak to an attorney, we can connect you with counsel. We're not a law firm. We don't have attorneys that work in-house, but we have outside counsel we can connect you with. And then as funds allow, we'll even make a donation towards your legal expenses. Again, if it's a case that we can take on, if it's a case we think that, is viable and has a chance of really succeeding, and that we can competently, or they can, I should say, the attorneys can competently take it on, then sure. That's not going to be every case, though. And it's not going to be a case challenging a mandate in general. That won't be us. Other organizations are doing that. Again, more power to them. Not here to speak badly about them. Maybe they'll come up with some theory, some novel legal theory I haven't thought of yet. But again, the Seventh Circuit is unfortunately, proving me correct. I was hoping that they would have some argument that I hadn't seen there, and that it was going to be a winner at the Seventh Circuit. They still have an appeal pending. The case isn't fully dismissed yet on appeal. It was just the injunction that was denied. But the court came right out and showed their hand of, listen, they don't think it's unconstitutional what Indiana University is doing. So they've already said that. So the chances of them succeeding on the full appeal, I think, are almost zero. And again, I don't like it. I wish that wasn't the law. I wish the law was had developed differently so that there were constitutional rights that were more protected here. But I don't see that here. Even when we pay for the services, Melissa asked, I think you're asking about even when you pay for tuition, like for the college, that's what you mean? Yeah. Because again, that's not a right. You're choosing to pay that. You're choosing to pay them. It's not like they took that money from you. Yes, there's taxpayer money that funds that university, but for your student to attend that university, you had to, you chose to pay that money. They didn't just, deduct that from your bank account. If you're sending a student there, you're paying it. Okay. You're choosing to pay it. So, that's, unfortunately, it's not a right. It's they chose to admit that student, all right, based on qualifications, and there's certain restrictions that go along with that. So the court today in the decision actually talked about that. They said, well, there's all kinds of restrictions. There's restrictions. There's code of conduct policy. There's a restriction as to, when you take a class, even if you don't necessarily agree with reading a certain book or it contains something that you consider heretical, if it's assigned, you have to read it and write a paper on it if that's the assignment. You can't choose to write a paper on, something else. They use the example of Othello, other than the book that was assigned. The book that you didn't, the novel or whatever you didn't agree with, you're just going to go write a paper on Othello instead because you don't agree with the assignment. There's all kinds of restrictions that are imposed when you go to college and rules that you have to follow. You don't just make up your own rules. And in this case, the rule is you have to receive this shot. Again, I don't think that's a great analogy personally, with all due respect to the court. I don't think that's a great analogy because this is something that's, invading someone's body. Okay. It's going beyond just writing an assignment or just reading something. It's even deeper than that. And it's something that, again, could be medically harmful. But again, the court's recognizing that and saying, yeah, but there's medical, that's why Indiana University is giving medical exemptions and religious exemptions. If something's deeply against their religious belief, they're giving exemptions for that. And actually all but one of the students, I think, who brought this lawsuit got a religious exemption. So they're not going to be forced to take it anyway. But again, they're just bringing this as a general challenge, saying there shouldn't be a mandate in the first place. Don't think that's a winning argument. Again, just my opinion. All right. Yeah. Okay. So Lisa This is a little snarky, I think. The best way to fight this is with religious exemptions until they take them away, like they have in New York for kids in 2019. They can't take away the First Amendment unless Congress repeals it. All right. This isn't about any state religious exemption. All right. You can get a religious exemption for COVID in New York right now. It doesn't matter that they took it away. The state doesn't have the power to take away your religious freedom under the First Amendment. State has no power to take away a constitutional right in the Bill of Rights. Okay. So that repeal in 2019 has no effect on what I'm talking about right now. The one has nothing to do with the other. Okay. It's been my contention all along that these state religious exemption laws aren't even necessary anyway. We always had the right to claim an exemption under the Constitution, even if there were never a religious exemption in existence in New York, for instance, or in Connecticut. We always had the right under the First Amendment. Again, and they can't take that away unless a majority of the states repeals it. And so you would have to get a repeal, and it's very, very difficult to repeal, especially something like the First Amendment. I don't see that being repealed. Has it been trampled upon? Sure. Has it been disrespected and ignored in many cases? Sure. But in many instances, I should say, I'm not talking about actual cases like court cases, but in many instances, people, government officials even, and individuals, businesses, universities have ignored it. But that's why you have legal resource. You have recourse to the courts. Yeah, Lisa says she wasn't being snarky. Yeah, I don't think they can repeal the First Amendment just as easily. All right, because again, you have to get all those states on board, and there's, just like passing an amendment, 3/4 of the states, most states aren't New York and California, thankfully. There's many, 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 many states that are never going to go along with repealing the First Amendment. Most states, I would think, would not go along with that. So yeah, maybe you get 2 or 3 or 4 that would go along with that, but the majority of states would not go along with repealing that. So I don't think that's going to happen. This is an interesting one. St. Louis, Katie, again, you were watching last night too. Thank you for being a faithful viewer. St. Louis University declined my friend's religious exemption request, stating she has had all other vaccines up until now. I think that's one worth fighting because that doesn't mean anything. Perhaps, I don't know the circumstances. Maybe it means something, maybe it doesn't. But how do we know that she's not someone who didn't know what was in the shots before or didn't have a choice because she was a minor before and now she's an adult making her own decision? My parents forced me to get this, but I'm an adult now. So it's a different circumstance. That's a very easy argument to overcome, I think, if that's challenged legally. What about the fact that maybe you didn't know what was in them before? You hadn't done the research. You were a kid. You got them. Now you're an adult. You've researched. You found out there's aborted fetal matter that was used in the production testing of these shots, and so now you're opposed to it because now you didn't know before. So circumstances change all the time, and not all of the shots contain the same things and were produced the same way or tested the same way. So you can't compare this to all of the shots. In fact, this COVID shot is different from pretty much any other shot that's ever been. It is different from any other vaccine because it's not really a vaccine in the traditional sense. So it's completely different than anything that's ever been produced. And I think that's pretty much it for questions. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm not going to stay on any longer. I just think that, again, we should be putting our efforts, our time and attention into battles that we can win. All right. And again, that's not to discourage those students in Indiana or to say that they're not, they don't have a point, because I believe they do. I believe from a moral and ethical standpoint, they have a really strong argument. But we have to look at the constitutional standpoint, the legal standpoint. Not what we wish the law was, but what the law is. Okay. All right. And so that's all I'm saying. Again, we support the good work of many other organizations across the nation, who are doing really, really good work for medical freedom, for health freedom. And we stand with them. But I want us all to be smart about this and to approach this the right way, because I don't want to see us diverting valuable time and resources when we have hardly any of it, into places that are not very likely to prevail, when we could be pooling them all into another place, other types of lawsuits that would have much greater chance of success. So again, if you want to support our litigation efforts, go to wethepatriotsusa.org. Please commit to 10 and tell everybody you know to do the same. That's the Commit to 10 campaign. We're asking everybody to donate $10, commit to donating $10 monthly, and then tell at least 10 family or friends, family members or friends to do the same. Share that link with them, and let's have this catch on. We need really thousands donating, because this is going to cost, I mean, this kind of litigation is going to add up to 7 figures very, very quickly. So we need really thousands and thousands of people committing to 10. So please share this everywhere that you see it. Tell everybody about it. At the very least, go on wethepatriotsusa.org, find that donation link. I'm sorry I always talk about money when I come on here, but everything I do is just going to be empty. These are going to be empty promises. Not that I'm making anyone a particular promise, but these are going to be just empty words that I'm saying here, unless we have money to back it up. You know, taking on all these lawsuits and fighting all these fights, that's all just words if I don't have any money to back it up. All right. If this organization doesn't get the funding, we can't really do any of it. So I don't want to just be spouting empty words. I want to actually deliver on it and actually file these lawsuits everywhere. So that's why I'm asking, please, please, please consider supporting our organization. And the monthly donations are so important, because they give us a predictable, reliable stream of income, rather than just, you know, you donate, even if you donate $100 or $1,000 just one time, that's wonderful. But those people we never usually see again. They'll donate once and then they'll drop off the face of the earth. We'll never see them again. And so we don't know if we're ever going to get that kind of funding again the next month, the next month, the next month. It's a one-time deal. And then, you know, you can't plan a budget. You can't plan lawsuits. You can't do anything really in terms of financial planning when it's unpredictable from one month to the next. You don't know what's coming in. That's just flying by the seat of your pants, and you're never going to be successful in your endeavors if you're just operating a business that way. So that's why it's so important to commit to monthly donations. All right, with that, I'm out. Have a great evening, everyone. I hope this was informative. I hope it didn't put a damper too much on people's spirits, because I really do think that we have some great arguments that we can win on. And I do think we are going to prevail in the end. So there, how's that for ending on a positive note? Have a great night, everyone.